Nobody is doing anything. Eamonn Holmes lets rip as he brands migration situation a disaster. Police clashed with protesters in the Northern Irish town of Ballymena for a second evening. Eamonn Holmes has launched a scathing attack on the government's handling of migration, declaring that nobody is doing anything about what he called a disaster. His comments come as Northern Ireland grapples with serious disorder in Ballymena, where violent riots erupted on Monday evening. Eamonn fumed on GB News. Just look at this country. You stand back, Reeves is going to mouth off about today. These are the issues. These are the issues that are affecting people. They're affecting people's pockets. They're affecting people's sociability, all sorts of things. We're not doing anything about it. Nobody is doing anything about the migrant situation, or they're not doing anything effective. They can talk about how they'll do this and they'll do that, but they're not doing anything. And that is how bad it is. There is no border between the Republic of Ireland and Northern Ireland. These people can get into the Republic of Ireland, which is in the European Union, and then they can get into the UK by just going to Northern Ireland, and then who knows where they'll end up after that. It is a disaster. The unrest followed a protest earlier on Monday evening, which police said was connected to a serious incident over the weekend. Two 14-year-old boys had appeared before Coleraine Magistrates Court earlier that day, charged with the attempted rape of a teenage girl in Ballymena. The alleged assault occurred in Clonavon Terrace between 7:30 p.m. and 10:30 p.m. on Saturday. Assistant Chief Constable Ryan Henderson later characterized Monday's violence as racially motivated disorder in Ballymena. He vowed that the PSNI was actively working to identify those responsible and would bring them to justice. Henderson announced that significant police resources would be deployed to address any further disorder during the week. The disorder escalated on Tuesday evening as hundreds gathered in residential streets around Clonavon Terrace from approximately 7 p.m. Riot police in armor and shields formed barricades whilst masked protesters shouted abuse and hurled fireworks, glass bottles and pieces of metal at officers. The PSNI warned those present to disperse and threatened to deploy water cannon against anyone participating in violent activity. When the crowd refused to disperse, police fired plastic baton rounds at some of those gathered. Load of nonsense. Eamonn Holmes says spending review will be forgotten by election time. The Chancellor is set to deliver her spending review at 12:30 p.m. today. Eamonn Holmes has dismissed the significance of Reeves' spending review, calling it a lot of nonsense that will be forgotten by the time of the next election. The Chancellor is set to deliver her spending review at 12:30 p.m. today, outlining departmental budgets through to the end of the decade. The review will detail both day-to-day resource spending and longer-term capital investment plans. Speaking about the review, Eamonn said, "We talk about the figures that will be announced today, taking us into the next election. What a lot of nonsense. They'll change these. They will adopt these as we go along. And no one will ever remember in 2 years' time that these are the figures that she quoted today." Deputy editor of Spiked Online, Fraser Myers added, "It's going to be difficult for Reeves in particular, because she has sold herself as this Iron Chancellor and immediately has folded on what she said was a key issue. You had members of the Labour cabinet saying if we don't cut winter fuel allowance, there will be a run on the pound. Now they're saying, well, we're bringing it back because the economy has improved. Well, the economy hasn't improved. Unemployment's up. Inflation is up. Borrowing costs are up. The Chancellor is prioritizing 3 key areas: health, security and the economy. This translates to increased funding for the NHS, police, schools, transport and defense departments in the spending allocations to be announced. Several major spending commitments have already been announced ahead of the review. The NHS is expected to receive a £30 billion boost over 3 years, whilst education spending will rise by £4.5 billion annually by 2028-29. Infrastructure projects include £15.6 billion for public transport in England's city regions and £16.7 billion for nuclear power projects, with £14.2 billion allocated specifically for the new Sizewell C power plant in Suffolk. Housing initiatives will receive £39 billion over the next decade to build affordable and social homes. The government has also committed £445 million for Welsh Railway upgrades and will extend the £3 bus fare cap until March 2027. Additionally, plans include extending free school meals to 500,000 more children on universal credit, supporting lower-income families across the country. Eamonn Holmes delivers verdict on new Tottenham Hotspur manager, very good fit. Tottenham Hotspur is preparing to pay approximately £10 million in compensation to secure Thomas Frank's services from Brentford. Eamonn Holmes has delivered his verdict on Thomas Frank's potential appointment as Tottenham Hotspur manager, expressing strong confidence in the partnership. "I could see him being at Spurs for a long time. I think that could be a very good fit," Eamonn said during a discussion about the Brentford boss's imminent move to North London. Sports broadcaster Paul Coit echoed Holmes's optimism, describing Frank as a very good manager and a decent guy who represents a very good fit with Spurs. The positive assessment comes as Tottenham prepare to pay approximately £10 million in compensation to secure Frank's services from Brentford, where he has been in charge since 2018. Speaking on GB News, Coit said, "I think he's a very good manager. He's a decent guy and he's a very good fit with Spurs, I think. There's an exit fee which Spurs are going to have to pay Brentford of around £10 million, which people think is a lot if you've got to pay £10 million. However, if you think we've got to pay for a decent player and how important a player is, how important is a manager? So £10 million is probably nothing." Eamonn Holmes said, "I could see him being at Spurs for a long time. I think that could be a very good fit." Paul Coit said, "Let's hope he's a successful manager, and hopefully will happen today. I know Brentford aren't very happy, but they've had a great run with him. 2021 he's taken them up into the Premier League. That's where they've been ever since, they love him there, and I think he'll be a very good fit at Spurs." The formal announcement of Frank's appointment is expected within days, ending Tottenham's search for a new head coach following Ange Postecoglou's dismissal last Friday. Postecoglou's departure came despite the Australian ending Tottenham's 17-year trophy drought by winning the Europa League last month. However, Spurs' domestic form proved catastrophic, with the club finishing 17th in the Premier League table after suffering 22 defeats in 38 matches during the 2024-25 season. The club released a statement on Friday describing the decision to sack Postecoglou as one of the toughest decisions they have had to make. "It is crucial that we are able to compete on multiple fronts and believe a change of approach will give us the strongest chance for the coming season and beyond," the statement read. Tottenham also dismissed Postecoglou's coaching staff, including Mile Jedinak, Nick Montgomery and Sergio Raimundo, whilst Chief Football Officer Scott Munn was sacked as part of sweeping changes to the club's football structure. Frank has established himself as one of the Premier League's most respected tacticians during his tenure at Brentford, currently serving as the second longest reigning head coach in the English top flight behind Pep Guardiola. Since taking charge in 2018, he guided the Bees to Premier League promotion in 2021 and has maintained their top-flight status ever since, achieving a 10th-place finish this past season.